Okay, so yeah, today's tech talk is going to be on extending your academia reports with Excel. And we have a few topics that I'd like to discuss. So we have the best report formats to use when you do this, some simple formatting techniques, also cross-referencing reports, if you want some data from one report into another. Um, and then the highlight, I feel like, of the presentation is going to be our section on pivot tables and pivot charts. And that's pretty much the last two sections. So most people, when you go to run your report, you're going to see the, 6 different options here. It may not even know what some of these are for XML, Web Archive, whatever. And you might think, okay, well, there is an Excel format there. Let me try that. So the unfortunate thing with that report, it looks a lot like the PDF. So it's going to have a lot of formatting in it that you may not want. Like if you want the raw data to be able to manipulate it and do things with the data. So I say no to the Excel and yes to the CSV format. So, and then just kind of looking at this screenshot here, you can see that there's a lot of different things that I did to it, from the styles to sorting to filters that can be added, adding subtotals that weren't originally part of this export, and then some conditional formatting, like I have a scale on the right side for, who, if somebody was there longer, it's going to be green. If it was lesser time, it's going to be more toward the red. And of course, these color highlights on the totals for each one. So what I wanted to do is just jump over to Accudemia and pull a report for that. Here we go. Okay. And to get there, we're going to go to Data Analytics Reports. And really, I like any of the attendance by because these are my detailed reports. So if I just type in attendance by in the top left, I've got some that are favorited. And let's say I like this attendance by service report. So we're going to go ahead and run that. But before we do, I'm going to go ahead and choose that CSV format. I might want to include their ID. And I want to have a good amount of data, so I'm going to do it for the fall term. And I think I'm good there. So go ahead, we can run this report. Alrighty, and it's ready to download. So when you start off, it's not going to look very significant. It's going to be all the data just kind of lumped in there. And, there's some simple styling things like, you could just select it, pulled it, maybe give it a different background color, whatever you want to do there. So those are those things. Also, one of the things that I have a lot of people ask is, this has all the data, which is great, but I want it subtotaled. Uh, and you have to think about this report. So this one was by service. So it's going to first group the service in this list. And you can see all the different services that I have. And it's going to be alphabetical, so all the way from academic coaching to workshops that I have in one center. So if I did want to do that, I can just select this data. And once I do that, up here, I can go ahead and go to the data tab and do a subtotal. It's pretty quick and easy thing to do. So because it's already sorted on service, we can go ahead and say, okay, I want it grouped by the service. So for each change in service, I want a subtotal, and I want it to sum. And what do I want it to sum? I want the period to sum. So it almost had that filled out exactly the way I wanted it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And you can see just right away, with what Excel did for me, is it went ahead and subtotaled these for each of the different services that we had. So I got a sum. I could have done averages. So let's say we want to do that again. I can replace the subtotals, and let's say we change this to average instead. Okay, so now these numbers are now the average instead, so about 30-minute walk-in tutoring sessions. However you want to do that. There's some other things. If you select the data, let's say I want to have these totals stand out from the rest of the data. So I can go to the Home tab again, conditional formatting, and we can do a new rule, let's say, use a formula. And this is actually pretty simple. If I go ahead and put equals, I can look at one of these columns that have a blank in it. And so for instance, I could use the B column here because there's a blank on that total. So I'll say equals, and you always want to go one down from the where that heading is. So this would be like B5, and that's just the cell reference. So we're talking about that, but it'll actually know that we mean, and then we're going to say equals, and then we're going to do double quote, double quote. So basically we're saying if B5 equals blank, and now we get to choose the format. So I like to bold and italicize, and I also want to fill in with a nice color. So we'll go with like, let's say a light green. So this is a preview of it, and if I hit OK, okay, and I think it did a little something extra that I didn't want it to. So we'll go ahead and manage the rules. I just go back in there when I have that selected, and it did change my formula, I think. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a $sign before the B so it knows it's just the B. Oops. And make that B5 again. Let's try it again. There we go. This is what I was expecting. Okay. So it's supposed to highlight the totals, and I can see that it's actually one up. So I think I did that wrong. Let's try B4. There we go. Okay. So it was the heading row. Okay. So basically what that did is I looked at any of the B, whenever there's a blank, it wanted to highlight that row. And there's other things I could do. Let's say I wanted to go ahead and remove the subtotals. You can actually go back into the subtotal under data subtotal, hit remove all. So I get rid of my subtotals. And let's say the same report, I don't want to have to pull the by student report. What I could easily do is just sort on the student column, and now they're grouped by student. If I wanted to get fancier, I could actually add a level and maybe then do it by service. So it's alphabetized afterwards with that. And then doing the same subtotal. This time we're going to say every change in student. We're going to do the subtotals. And then if I wanted to do the apply again, I would maybe change that conditional format to use column A since that's got the blank space in it now. And we just change that to an A. Apply that. There we go. So we've got that highlighted. So there's just some things that you can do. I put that under the simple. We're going to see how it gets a little more complex on the next step. All right, so I'm going to minimize that. Oh, one other thing, just like I almost forgot, when you do make any changes like this to the style, Just remember to save in XLS format because we did download it as a CSV. You will lose any data styling and things like that if you don't save it as a Excel file. All right, so this is where I want to combine two different reports together. So there might be data over here in this report and data in another report, and I want to go ahead and um, combine those. So we're only going to look at the VLOOKUP function. I did actually research for this video these other formulas. They are a little bit more complex, so I didn't want to get into all that right now. But I did want to kind of highlight those. So there is an index and match. Some people prefer this just because you can have different references versus the VLOOKUP. It's a little limited, as well as the dget and the XLOOKUP. XLOOKUP is really, if you have like the newer versions of Excel, it's really good because it actually kind of turns it into a database. Um, so I didn't want to get into those, but I will show you the first one here. And this is the one that I use most often. Oops, it didn't switch. There we go. Okay. So in this case, let's say I have that same report, but I also wanted to include some other information from another report. And I'm going to look at the list reports because maybe I actually wanted the email address of the student. So I could go ahead and pull just a list of all my students. And I want to include the ID so that I have something to reference those students by. Again, we're going to choose the CSV format. And I didn't want to filter out any of the students, just so that way I get a complete list. Okay, there we go. All right, so this is that file. And what I'm going to do, we're going to go ahead and pull all these emails for these users. And I'm going to go ahead and reopen the other report that we had. And again, because I didn't save it, it's going to look like the normal CSV, kind of unformatted. Okay, and in here, I'm going to go ahead and just call this column the email column. We're going to say equals v lookup. Okay, and the first thing it wants to know is what are we looking up? What's the value? So I'm going to base it on their ID number. Okay, and right after that, I'm just going to put a comma. And now it wants to know where I want to look that information up. And this is we're going to go, actually, while we're building the formula, just click over on the other file. And the only problem, and this is why some people don't use the VLOOKUP, is it does actually want the ID in the leftmost lane. So I'm not going to be able to include the student information. The index and match feature would probably help with that. So what I'm going to do is just select this entire file and everything from the ID over though. And if you do Control Shift down, it will actually go all the way to the bottom of that file. So that was Control Shift down, and I could have done that. I just have to be in the topmost upper left of that lane of data. And I think I selected all the columns and then Control Shift down. You can also do Control Shift end if you just have like the topmost. But if you notice, we're still building that reference. So I'm going to go ahead and say comma. And then the next thing that this formula is looking for is the index. So what column number? So if I literally would number these from their ID number, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I want the fourth column of data after that. And then it wants to know, do we want approximate matches or exact matches? So I'm going to go ahead and say false because I want an exact match. And then we're going to just end that with a closing parentheses. So you can see there's the email now, and I have it on this report of all the visits that they had. Okay, and all I did was double click the bottom right corner. You can also click and drag that down, and it'll go all the way to the bottom. But yeah, if you just double click here, I can undo it just so you can see. When it turns to that more solid plus sign, there it is. And I've got all my emails of my students. So this is a test account, so you'll see my email a bunch. But I could go ahead and save that. Even if I saved it as CSV, it's still going to have that data. It just won't save any of the formatting. So okay, so that's that. And I just find that pretty useful if I need to combine two reports together. You may want to look into some of these other ones that I mentioned on here. I just didn't want to take up the time, and it's kind of confusing. So okay, so the best tables when you're actually, or sorry, best reports rather to pull when you're doing pivot tables and pivot charts. I really like the statistical ones. So if you think of like your attendance summary reports, there's a bunch of different attendance summaries. We have about 4, but really one of those is like a 5-in-1 report. So we have a lot more technically. And then after that, I would say the traffic analysis reports, because you can also get these with charts and lists of all the data as well. So really quickly, we're going to actually go ahead and build this out so you can kind of see what this looks like. And this image is really bad, but basically this on the left is like a pivot table, and this is a pivot chart over there. What's really neat about this is you get to choose the style of chart. So maybe you want something a little different than what we offered you. And Excel has a wide variety of color choices and all different types of things. So what I'm going to do is, don't want to take up too much time here. Let's go ahead and go. I'm going to pull one of my traffic analysis reports, and then we can open it up for questions. So I'm going to go look up chart visits, traffic analysis. And instead of all the reports, I do want to get a good data set. So I want to go ahead and do like probably the entire semester here. All right. And I'm not going to get the charts because the charts are good. You can see what they look like. But I'm mainly interested in the list because it's going to have all the data. And I could pull all of them. It really wouldn't harm anything. So we'll go ahead and run that. But before I do, remember again to choose the CSV file format. Okay, and that just did like 60 reports like that. That's pretty awesome. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and extract this real quick. Okay, so you can see all the reports that it gave me. And let's go ahead and look at something like session or visits by hour and day of the week. I think that was one that I liked. And I'm going to do the list so that we get the data from that. Okay. And I just like to spread it out just so that I can see what I'm working with. So they already kind of give you the numbers here, but this is what's significant. So you're going to go ahead and select those. And just to show off some of those things, if I click on the top left cell here and do Control Shift down, it's going to go all the way to the bottom, and I could do Control Shift right to go all the way to the right most of the data. Or if I just do Control Shift end, it should go ahead and select that whole set. Now what I'm going to do is go to Insert, and we're going to look for the pivot tables section that we have here. Sorry, I've got something in my way. Okay, and you can either go by recommended ones, or I'm just going to do it the traditional way. So we're going to say from table or range under the pivot table. And we're going to make a new worksheet, so it just opens another tab here. Okay, and so it takes these items that I have, and I can go ahead and choose what I want the columns to look like, as well as the rows. So basically you can see we're building out the days of the week, the hours of the day, and then I want the counts to go over here. So you can kind of see that get spread back out into like a different type of matrices. So if you look at that, this is your pivot table. And so I can actually play around with, maybe I want the days on the rows and I want the hours on the columns. So you can kind of mess around with the data and see exactly. So that's what I really like about this. I'm going to put it back to the way I had it though. Okay, so there we go. And what's really neat is you can kind of expand these things to see further breakdowns. I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to select the entire data again. And now this time we're going to build a chart out of it. So we're going to go to Insert. And in here, you're going to have something called Pivot Chart under the Charts section. So this is where we're basically taking that data from Accudemia. And maybe I didn't like the color scheme that Accudemia gave, or I wanted to turn it into pie charts instead. Whatever makes more sense to you. So I could go ahead and let's say we want to use this bar chart. And there's a lot of things once you have this open that you can actually format. So, if I want different color schemes, where's design? Here we go. So I can go back and change the chart type if I wanted to go now instead to a line chart or something like that. I can switch columns with rows. So right away it goes from the days of the week and the times being the legend to, vice versa. I can also choose the colors. So there's like change color scheme. If you like, blues, oranges, whatever, it's pretty fun. But yeah, so then this is a cool way that I can analyze this data. And the other cool features with a pivot chart is over here. I can also filter things out. So let's say I only wanted to see certain days of the week. I go over here and let's say, okay, I want to see Fridays, what it looks like. So I'm looking at the same data sets just for Friday. And I could do that as well with the table. If I wanted to see the numbers, there's also filters up here. And anything I do over here will automatically update over there and vice versa because I built that off of that data set. So really kind of cool. I started playing around with it. Once again, it is a CSV format. If you want to save any of those, just make sure to do save as, and then when you select it, they'll give you like the XL version in the drop down here. So whatever yours is, XLS or XLX. Cool. So that's that. Let me go ahead and close out of that. And that's everything that I had prepared. Let's go ahead and take some questions.
Okay, so Michaela asks, is there a reason the reports in Excel are formatted like PDFs instead of listing the raw data like the CSV file export does?
It's a good question. I think we actually just met with the developers earlier this morning and we were talking about that. And they were saying how it has something to do with like the way that the SQL reporting services work or something, like the way that they get the data. So it goes into Excel in a highly formatted format. And that's why I was saying like you can literally take those though and get them to look exactly how you want and, go from there. It does kind of kill the ability to schedule them, but like if you did need something to look really nice, you were presenting it to a board or something like that, you could use these tips. Or you could schedule the CSV and then just maybe make a little quick how-to for your staff, like this is the way we want it formatted.
Any additional help you need, please feel free to contact us. Implementation, best practices can be directed to me, support at accudemia.com. There's no wrong answer if you're not sure who to reach out to first, but we're just happy to hear from you and for the chance to help you.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.